next up this morning, we have Jo Hawker joining us, and Jo is a subject leader for geography at Davison High School for Girls in West Sussex. Now, we've heard from Davison previously in our real world learning journey, but today, because of the focus being around addressing those gaps in attainment, Jo will be joining us to really talk about, as Mick was saying, about those KPIs and the KPI boost, and how that actually transfers into their school.
Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, as Lucy said, my name's Jo. I'm the subject leader for geography at Davison High School, so we'll be talking a little bit geography focused. And I'm going to be talking about how we've kind of moved from an online curriculum to student-led learning. So if you go to the next slide, I'll just kind of outline for you, first of all, what kind of where we were and where we are now, so pre and kind of mid-lockdown, I suppose. So prior to lockdown, we definitely used Frog as a real resource. We recorded all of our key performance indicators on there, and we already had sort of like an outline of our curriculum on our department pages. But what we did find was that our students didn't really use those very much. So we put quite a lot of work into like putting everything together, and then they would only really use them if we really directed them to it. And also staff pretty much were marking on paper, not really ever using the feedback tools. And so we've been, obviously, as we all have, we've been through a period of real change and transition, and out of that have come some real positives. So now, obviously, our students are really confident at finding things. They do it all the time, pretty much every lesson. One thing that we've been surprised and encouraged by is how our students have independently started to kind of use their feedback to try to make improvements. We found the students have been mostly really positive about what they're doing in geography. And for staff as well, obviously huge amounts of staff development, but one particular area is that we were previously using marking just on paper, and now we are using only Frog mark books and feedback. So next slide for me, please. Thank you. So what's come out of that is that we particularly have been focusing on developing targeted intervention and improvement for our students in both Key Stage 3 and in Key Stage 4. And the great thing that's come out of it is that that has happened with kind of minimal effort from staff, which has been great. So I'm just going to talk to you about what we have done and what that looks like. Next slide, please. I'm presenting live. Sorry. So in Key Stage 3, what we've been doing is developing our learning locker resources. So I've been head of geography for for about 4 years, and we've always had one big issue that keeps coming up that we are needing to deal with, which is how can we intervene with our students, with our Key Stage 3 students who aren't making expected progress. So for us as a team, we are teaching all of Key Stage 3. We don't have a lot of capacity to do extra intervention and to support students kind of outside of lessons. So we've always struggled with what can we do to help our students when we know they're not making the progress that they should be. How can we help them to make expected progress? And now we feel we have a strategy, which is really exciting. So if you show my next slide, then this is just a little example. So what we've done is we've developed these tools which come from the masses of information that we've been able to access through having students upload their work onto Frog. So they have obviously been submitting all their work online, and we've been marking it all online, and we realized pretty early on this is an amazing tool that we can use. We've got this resource of great exemplar, or sometimes reasonably good exemplar material, and we have then used that to kind of create some really targeted feedback. So previously we used to do this like period in our school calendar called KPI Boost, where the students would work on KPIs that they hadn't got yet, and they would try to improve on them, and then we would kind of give them the chance to have another go. The problem with that was that what we would do is just put loads of stuff in the learning lockers, loads of material for them to access, and they would often just feel a bit confused, maybe not sure where to start, maybe not sure what the most useful resource was. So now we've made these sort of sheets. This is just one example. We're trying to show them actually what a good piece of work looks like, what it is that we're looking for, showing them some positive feedback, but then also giving them an activity to build on from that. So for this one, which is about physical processes in geography, something we find the students really struggle with is the sequencing. So they understand like, volcanoes or earthquakes are formed in a particular way and it involves these different elements, but they're not always so good at the sequencing. So we've kind of put this together as a really targeted way of helping them to improve. Next slide, please. What's great about this and that we're really excited about is that it's very targeted. So we can help our students, if they've already achieved the KPI, then we've also got some that say, help me to exceed it. It fits obviously with our school strategy of KPI boost. But what's really lovely is it's really low teacher effort. So all that we've had to do is find an example, which we've got masses of. And what we tend to do is we have like an open folder that we share as a team. And just whenever we come across like quite a good example that's legible and useful, we just stick it in the folder. And then later we can come back and do a little bit of editing. But it really doesn't take a lot of work to put something together. We've found this kind of great resource that we've been able to then use and move our students forward with their KPI boost season that they have. And similar, we've also been working with Key Stage 4, next slide, please, to develop something similar. So this is slightly different because slightly more personalised. At Key Stage 3, it's very much like we're dealing with hundreds of students and we're wanting something that is going to be targeted to the KPI. Obviously at Key Stage 4, it's a little more personalised, but what we've still found is this wealth of resource that we have in the work that our students have uploaded, that we're much more able to exemplify what we mean when we give feedback. I don't know, I'm sure we've all had times when we've given feedback like, explain this point more fully, and the students are like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what you want from me. So now we can exemplify really clearly. Students can see common mistakes also and learn from them. And we can also show our students how common themes apply to all questions. And again, I'll just show you one example if you go to the next slide. So this is one student, the same student, their work is about a month apart. And it's just an example of how accessing that feedback and us using little snippets of exemplification has allowed the student to move on. So even if you don't know anything about geography, you can kind of see how we are developing their structure, developing their use of language, so that they're writing a much more understandable and full answer than they were beforehand. So yeah, we found it really exciting that actually a resource that we already had available to us has been so useful. Next slide for me. So the outcomes of this so far, and we're really at the beginning of a journey here with this particular project. You know, in our school we do KPI boost, and we love Frog and we love using bits of it, but we're certainly on a journey. But what we've already found is that our students are accessing feedback more independently. So they're going in, accessing things without us asking to. They often arrive to lessons ready to make improvements. Sometimes you even get them contacting you saying, am I allowed to redo this? Or please, can you give me something that I can do to move me forward in this KPI? Which is great. And another outcome that maybe we weren't expecting is, I think I said at the beginning that previously we had like our curriculum all mapped online and the students didn't really use it that much. But now what we're finding is they're seeing feedback and they're going and finding more resources in order to add to and build on and extend their learning, which has been really exciting for us. So yeah, it's been kind of a real positive of coming through this whole experience that we weren't really expecting, is the change that using online feedback has made for us, and also just using this resource that we have freely available to us to help our students move forward. Thank you. That felt a little bit rushed, so I hope that was okay.
Joe, not at all. And I know that you're going to be joining us. We're going to take 5 minutes just to get everybody ready and make sure we've got everybody ready for Sophie Bailey, who is going to be running the panel discussion. I know she'll probably be wanting to quiz you a little bit more about that. But I think the journey that you've taken obviously KPIs, KPI boost, your curriculum, etc., was in place before you went into lockdown. I think the massive changes that you've seen is how you've been obviously addressing that communication, because obviously nothing takes away the teacher, but having that connection with the teacher whilst they're not in the classroom and seeing that rich feedback and still managing to keep those children engaged in their learning is a real testament to you and the school. So thank you very much for sharing that.